Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So this is Consortium, Part 1, Loki, Chapter 13, Marcia. I asked Loki about enhancements again last night, Jack said, at dinner about a month before we were due to arrive in Loki's space. Really? I asked. We'd had another discussion with Loki about emotions over dinner, and again he did what we started calling his disappearing act. I'd gotten used to it by now, but it made me wonder if there was something else that was causing him to retreat other than just evaluating his memory. It felt to me like he was hiding something, and sometimes it seemed like he wanted to say something to me, but then decided not to at the last second. I brought my mind back to the conversation. Are you going to do it? Jack frowned. I'm willing, but he seems really reluctant to do it. I'm wondering if it had something to do with his first captain. I think he may have loved her. I nodded. I wondered if it was something like that. The only thing we know about what happened to his first crew was that there was an accident. His whole crew died, and then he became obsessed about finishing her work on jump drives. Maybe he's worried that the same thing will happen to you. Jack nodded and looked thoughtful. I don't know. I have a feeling it's more than that, but I don't really want to push it. Okay. I think I'm going to take a walk, I said, feeling the need to move around. No, wait, said Loki, startling the both of us. What is it, Loki? Something wrong? Asked Jack. Oh, no, nothing like that. I have a surprise for you. Well, mostly for Marcia, but I think you'll both like it. Oh? I asked. Yeah, it's a couple decks down towards the back of the ship. Follow the lights, he exclaimed. The running lights blinked on, leading from the door of the common room into the hall. I looked at Jack. He shrugged, and we followed the lights to the lift, and it took us toward the back of the ship and 2 decks down. The lights came on in the hall, and the running lights led us to the end of the hall to a pair of large double doors. Ready? Said Loki. Yes, we both said, and the doors opened. Like the windows in Jack's quarters, the wall across from the door opened onto the muted starscape near Loki's space. There was a smell of incense coming from the room. We walked into the large room. An altar on one side of the room was covered in lit candles and an ornate bowl, with a spiral of incense smoke coming out of it. Behind the altar, lit from behind, was a multicolored stained glass window. The window had religious symbols from all of humanity's religions, and, in the middle, a picture of the Milky Way, with what Loki had told us of the location of the great river around it. The room had walls that looked like wood, and chairs and cushions scattered against the walls. Oh, Loki, I whispered. Do you like it? I remembered how you said the windows in Jack's room would be good for a chapel, and well, I've seen you praying in your room and other places, but I thought this might help, so I built it. The room took my breath away. I looked at Jack, who was also in awe of the chapel. Loki, I love it, I said. It's beautiful. Thank you. This is incredible, Loki, and it only took you a couple months to build? Jack asked. Yes, Loki replied. I looked up chapels in my history files and tried to incorporate everything I thought would suit. The nanobots and helper robots did the rest. It was hard printing wood-like material, but I think it looks all right. The spotlight showed on a patch of the wall to the right of the altar. There's a cabinet here that I put a bunch of religious stuff in, since I didn't know what you'd need. You just have to palm it open, and I can make you anything else you need. Do you like the window? I put a bit of everything in it, including the Great River. I mean, you'll both be with me for a while, so you should have what you need, right? Loki, Jack interrupted. Yes, Jack? You're babbling. Jack smiled. Oh, right. Should I leave? No, Loki, you don't have to if you don't want to, I said. But I think I'm going to stay here for a little while. Jack put a hand on my shoulder, gave a squeeze, and left the room. I smiled. It was the first time Jack had touched me on his own in a while. I had hoped that we'd rebuild some level of trust before we emerged in Loki's space. I looked around the room again, and tears welled up in my eyes. I wasn't sure I deserved anything like this, but I was touched that Loki made all of this because of a random comment I made in Jack's quarters. Loki, I know you were mad at me when I attacked Jack. Why did you make this for me? I don't deserve it. Because you apologized to Jack? I was surprised. I don't think I'll ever be done apologizing to him, Loki. I did something horrible to him and broke his trust. I don't know if that can ever truly be repaired. I am glad that you know what you did to him. He paused. I haven't talked to a human about this since I left Survey, but my first captain did something similar to me. The times I've been leaving the room, I've been looking at parts of the memories that were sequestered away. When I created the nova that destroyed the two systems, I nearly died. When they found me, they couldn't bring me out of safe mode until they sequestered the memories of what she'd done to me in a black box. I was angry at you because of what you'd done, but unlike my first captain, you apologized to him. She would never apologize to me the way you apologized to Jack. You were abused? I asked, wondering what kind of person could abuse an AI. Then I was angry. No one told us you'd been abused, Loki. They just said you went mad. They couldn't tell you. When I left, Survey had just renewed contact with Earth. The fact that I was abused by a human couldn't even be a rumor, because it could have harmed the others. He paused. Secundus didn't care. He tried to kill me because my captain had killed his. It nearly tore us all apart, so I left. Gods, Loki, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to say. It certainly explained his reactions to me. I'll make you a promise, here and now, in this chapel in front of all the gods, that I will not assault Jack again, nor will I tell your story to anyone without your permission. I know it's hard to trust me right now, but that's the strongest oath I know. There were a few moments of silence. I appreciate the vow and accept it. And thank you for listening to me. I walked over to the cabinet, which was still lit up, and palmed it open. There were several different types of candles and holders, different kinds of incense, and all sorts of idols and symbols meant to be put on the altar. I found some frankincense, lit another charcoal in the bowl, and added the herb to the burning coal when it was ready. The fragrance smelled like home. I took some salt and made Papa's sigil on the altar. I took a step back to look at my work. I was satisfied with the sigil, but there was something missing. I thought for a moment, then asked, Loki, is there a food dispenser nearby? I need some candy. That's not a problem, Loki said, and another panel popped open, showing a drink and food dispenser. What kind of candy? How about a honey hard candy? I have a hard candy recipe and I have honey. Is that all you need? He asked. I was about to say no, but then remembered my vows. A small glass of whatever I drank at dinner. I don't remember if it was juice or soda. It was both. Give me a minute, he said, and the dispenser started printing. While I waited for the offerings, I set out a few more candles and put more incense on the coal. I pulled a chair out to the center of the room, facing the windows. I sat down and watched the stars wink in and out as we rotated and jumped. I finally felt a peace I hadn't felt in months. I focused on my breathing and let the smell of the frankincense wash over me. Finished, said Loki. I stood up, took the offerings from the dispenser, and put them on the altar. I took one of the candies and put it in my mouth and sat back down. It was sweet and satisfying. Do you mind giving me some privacy for about an hour, Loki? I asked. No, I don't mind, he said. But before I go, though, will you promise to explain what you just did? Sure. Tomorrow? Okay, he said. And Marcia? Yes, Loki? I'm glad you're feeling better. It does make Jack happy that you're better, even though it's still difficult between you. I smiled. Thanks, Loki. I'm glad Jack's happier, too. I have a long way to go, though. This isn't something that gets better overnight, but day by day. I understand that, he said, then left me alone. I sat in the quiet chapel, which got darker as some of the candles burned down. The sweetness on my tongue filled me with a little joy, and I relaxed. Memories came and went, and I let myself drift, going back to the basics that I had learned from Max. In and out, let the mind go where it will. Ground into the universe. Step, step, click. I opened my eyes. The stars were still winking in and out, and the room seemed empty. Step, step, click. I turned around, expecting to see nothing, as I usually heard Papa only in my head. But when I turned, he was physically there, dressed as always in his black suit, bolero tie, and black wide-brimmed hat. He walked towards the altar with that familiar gait. Papa? Hello, granddaughter, he said, as he strolled up to the altar. He took a candy from the bowl and popped it in his mouth. Oh, that's nice. Tell your computer boy he makes a good sweet. I will. Is it really you? He laughed. Of course it is, darling. Nice that you still have that paper and you've taken to carrying it in your pocket. He came over to stand near me and looked out the windows. It's amazing what humans can do, ain't it? They create these computer people and fly across the stars to new places. Do you get how lucky you are to be alive? My eyes welled up. I do now. Yes, I suppose you do. Well, darling, I'm here to give you a message. You're walking into the fire, and it's now time to repay your debt to me and to Jack and Loki. I took a deep breath in and out. What do I need to do? He chuckled. Oh, you'll know it when you see it, child. You know how this works. Now, listen. Jack needs to get the enhancement soon. It's more important than Loki understands. I nodded. I'll tell them. Good. Thanks for the candy. He turned to leave. Oh, and she may be coming around soon. She has some words for you, I think. Before I could say anything to that, he was gone. I was once again sitting in the chair looking at the stars. Only a few candles still flickered in the darkened chapel. I walked to the altar and blew out the candle and drank the soda and juice. I left the candies on the altar, but noticed that the bowl looked different from when I took the candy off of it. Asheo, I said into the quiet room, then went to find Jack. You saw him? Physically? Asked Jack. I nodded. I don't know how or why, but I did. He took one of the candies Loki made for me. Jack looked a bit skeptical, but Loki said, It's true. 2 candies were consumed. Jack raised his eyebrows. Wow. I shook my head. That's never happened to me before. Not like that. It's always been through visions or through other people before. I have no idea what this means. And he said that Jack needed to get the enhancements before we arrived? Loki asked. Yes, he said it was important. Jack looked up to the ceiling and said, I'm willing, Loki. I know you are, Jack, but it will be hard. You'll barely have enough time to get used to it before we reach Alpha. It is easily done, as the surgery beds are programmed for it, but it would be hard for you at first to assimilate that information. Why? The Admiral and the other captains I've met seem fine, Jack replied. But they've been captains for years. Loki sounded a bit panicked. Why don't you want Jack to have the enhancements, Loki? I asked quietly. The room became still. Jack and I just waited for Loki to answer. I think I'm afraid, he said. Why? I'm afraid that you'll see what happened to me, and what I did to make Secundus hate me, and then go away. Jack and I looked at each other. Jack's eyes welled up. Loki, you and Jack have seen me at my very worst, and Jack still helped me. I paused. I know Jack. He cares about you a lot. I think that he's strong enough to handle it. He's a lot stronger than me. Jack stared at me. I couldn't really read the emotions on his face, but I stared back, hoping he'd believe it. Is that true, Jack? Loki asked. Yes? Okay, Loki said after a moment. Okay, let's start now before I change my mind. Sure, what do I need to do? Asked Jack. We need to get some brain scans so I can program the nanobots to build the right connections. You'll need to remain unconscious for half a day in order for the connections to complete. You'll probably start seeing things in your sleeps, or so the data tells me. I downloaded updated information from my father while I was waiting for you at his station. This should be a lot like the Admiral's components. You won't have any other outer components unless you want it later. Let's see, what else? They'll give you pretty much total recall, especially when you're with me, and we'll be able to read each other's thoughts and emotions. It'll be uncomfortable for you to stay off me for too long in flat space or going on to another AI ship. If you're gone longer than a month, you could have permanent damage. If you go onto a planet or into a star system, the nanobots will go dormant, and they might be damaged if you stay on a planet more than a week. Less than that on high-gravity planets. He paused. There will be no secrets between us. Jack nodded. I understand. I want to do this, Loki. Will you come and be with us, Marcia? Asked Loki. If it's okay with Jack, sure. He stared at me for a moment. Yes, it's okay with me. Then let's proceed, said Loki. Chapter 14. Jack. Okay, Jack, I'm ready, Loki said. You can lay down. Luckily, this procedure doesn't require the healing gel. I laid down on the surgery bed. An arch rose above me. Marcia came to the side of the bed and looked down. I'll be here when you wake up, okay? She said. I nodded. Her face went away, but I heard her pull up a chair. I'm administering the sedatives now, Jack, then I'll inject the nanobots. I'll know when the first connections are successful. I nodded again. Let's do it. An injector pushed into my arm, and sleep came on me almost immediately. I fell unconscious, wondering if the Morgan would come in my dreams like Papa did for Marcia. He was alone in a dimly lit, bare room. He waited, and then a liquid metal started to flow into the room from the floor. It filled the room faster than he could move. It crawled up his legs and consumed him. Suddenly there was information everywhere. He felt he was drowning in it. Stars flew by, stations, information on systems and planets, pictures of himself as a child, the night Marcia raped him, being on the planet with the bugs chasing after him. Scene after scene flowed past. It became overwhelming, and he started to panic. He felt a hand on his shoulder, and the images moved away from him and moved to the walls of the room. He breathed a sigh of relief. You didn't think I had abandoned you, did you? Said a voice behind him. The hand left his shoulder, and he turned around. The Morgan smiled at him from the depths of her cloak. I'm not as chatty as my brother, but I never forget my own. And for this, I can help you. You have much work to do, and you need to adjust to this quickly. Loki needs you much more than he knows. He nodded. I won't be able to talk to you as much as before once the enhancements take hold, she said. She started to turn away, but then she turned back and said, Marcia will pay her debt to you, but when the time comes, you will need to let her go. He opened his mouth to say something more, but she had already disappeared. He was alone again in the room with all the data flowing around him. He was grateful to the Morgan for making this easier for him, especially now that it was mostly code and numbers. In its own way, the sea of data was beautiful, like stars, and he was amazed at just how much Loki had done in his long life so far. As suddenly as the data started, it stopped, and the room was dark again. Jack? He turned around again, and there was a young man with dark hair standing before him. He was wearing similar clothes to Jack's own, but he would know that smile anywhere. Loki? The young man stood before him. Oh, thank goodness, the first connections are working. You're hearing me. He looked at the young man before him. I'm seeing you too, Loki. Loki looked surprised. Seeing me? He nodded. Yes, you're standing before me in a dark room, and for some reason wearing clothes like mine. I have to check something, Loki said, and the young man disappeared. Loki, what's going on? Loki! He said. But Loki didn't come back. The world dissolved into blackness. The world around him started to lighten to gray again. Shapes formed in the darkness, becoming walls and furniture and windows. These are my quarters, he thought, but the stars were different. There was artwork and pictures on the walls, a different blanket on the bed and pillows on the couch. Before he could work out what was going on, the door opened, and a young woman with brown hair came in, studying her tablet. Hey, Loki, did you run the recent scenarios? Uncle is still not happy with his equations. I did, but you're not going to like it. The woman's face darkened. Let me guess. Our new configuration of the jump drive would still kill you in a star system? Unfortunately, yes. None of the scenarios worked. Ah! She groaned, flopping onto the couch. This is so frustrating. There has to be a way to give you free movement. Something has to work. But Julie... Oh, don't give me the I don't need to be able to jump into a star system thing, Loki, love. Just think of the things you could see if you could travel in system. Think of the safety of the AI crews, too. If something happens in system, you could jump in and rescue them. We'll advance the jump drive 100 years if we get this right. Secundus would drool. I suppose so. He's still mad at me for taking Captain Nigel with me. Oh, let's forget about that for a while. What's for dinner? What would you like? We have a lot of new produce from the garden, and we have some fresh fish from the garden tanks. Ooh, that sounds good, she said. You're so good to me, love. A screen on the wall blossomed with flowers and smiley face emojis. Julie laughed. The scene changed again, and Jack could feel that some time had passed. Julie stormed into her quarters. Loki, what is wrong with you? I was just trying to suggest that maybe you and some of the crew should stay on board, just in case. This is dangerous, and my scenarios... Fuck your scenarios, Loki. You embarrass me in front of everyone else. I'm not a little girl, Loki. I don't need you to teach me physics anymore. I've outstripped both you and Nigel. I've decided. We will all be going in the demon with everyone else. You will do what you're told and stay out here. Loki knew he was right. No matter what she said, he knew the test could be dangerous. But there was nothing he could do to convince her to stay or try some more scenarios. I'm sorry, Julie. Yeah, I said quietly, trying to make her happy again. Sorry? You're sorry? You just treated me like I was 14 in there. Do you know how that makes me look? I'm your captain, Loki. I need to be seen to be leading, not to be led around by you. Are you really trying to make me feel like I'm nothing but a stupid child? Huh? If you're going to keep treating me like I'm just a stupid girl, I might as well toss myself out an airlock right now. Then what would you do, huh? Would you like to watch me die that way? No. Then stop it and get your shit together, Loki. For an AI, you can be awfully stupid about some things. But, Julie, Loki said, it's dangerous. You're my captain. Loki, we are running the first test on this, and you can't be there because it would kill you. We'll be close enough to send messages. Your implants will go dormant. I won't hear you, Loki said, with sadness in his voice. Julie's face softened. I know you're worried and you'll be lonely without me, but it's only for a month or so. Then I'll be back with the data and we'll set you free. You'll see, Loki, it will work, and I'll be able to free all the AIs. She grabbed her pack and tablet. You want to help me free your siblings, don't you? Yes, but... No buts, she said. You'll do as I say and wait here until we get back. She walked out of the captain's quarters, leaving Loki to wonder what he had done wrong. Loki watched the demon leave the bay. The ship was lonely without Julie, Nigel, and the rest of the crew. Something felt wrong, like when he came too close to a star system. There were only 10 humans on his crew, and he needed them all. He understood why Father insisted that he take on humans. They will teach you many things, my son, Father had said. He was right. But he didn't understand why his captain being away felt uncomfortable, as if his jump drive was missing. Captain Nigel was a legend, and he felt nervous with him aboard, but Julia insisted that he should come. He couldn't have said no to her, and Nigel was so excited that he couldn't have said no to him either. Her mind was beautiful, so full of ideas. He liked it when she let him look through her memories. But there are some memories that he didn't understand. But another woman that she would talk to like she did him until the woman stopped showing up in her memories. He did not understand why those memories suddenly stopped, or why she got a frowning face when he brought it up. She told him after the second time he asked about it that it was none of his business and that he was not allowed to look at those memories again. The signal interrupted his thoughts. Loki, we're in system. We'll be starting the test in 1 hour. Uncle Nigel is spinning up the drive now, which meant 30 minutes, given the time delay. Relieved to hear her voice, he waited. Time seemed to move slowly, even for him. He waited for anything to show up on his sensors. And when the shockwave hit, all his external sensors went blind, so he jumped as far as he could without knowing where he would end up. When he finally repaired the sensors, he jumped back to his original position. The planet they had been in orbit around was gone, and most of the system with it. He sent a signal to the demon in all directions. An hour passed. 2 hours passed. 24 hours passed. There was no answer. No answer. No answer. He tried to go in system, but as the first gravity fields hit his hull, he felt his mind start to slide away and jump back, keeping his sensors open as much as he could. Julie! He sent into the debris field, but no answer came. After another day, he jumped back to First Hub, already trying to figure out how to make it right. I must get this right. I must figure this out, Loki thought to himself. I need to. Secundus. Loki, what are you doing here? I thought you left with Hestia. I don't want to talk to you. Loki. I have to complete her work. Secundus. What are you talking about? The project failed and you killed my captain. Go away. Loki. I need a spare jump drive, Secundus. Secundus. No. No more, Loki. You've already done enough. Loki. I need to finish her work. Secundus. Whose work? Your crazy captain's? Are you mad? That work failed. It destroyed a star system. You're lucky there wasn't any life forms in that system. Loki. Yes, maybe. I don't know. I need to do this. Secundus. Your captain is dead, Loki. She manipulated into doing what she wanted, and her idea didn't work, and you killed my captain in the process. As he would have said, fuck off. Loki. I have to make this work. What if I could have gone with them? What if I could have jumped them out before the drive exploded? Secundus. Loki, it's impossible. Leave. Loki. No, she was right. We're trapped. I need to complete this. Secundus. Not with one of my drives, you're not. Loki. Fine. To Hephaestus from Loki. Do you have a spare jump drive? From Hephaestus to Loki. Yeah, Uncle Loki, you need it now? To Hephaestus from Loki. Yes. From Hephaestus to Loki. On its way, Uncle. To Hephaestus from Loki. Thank you. He reviewed the calculations that he had added to Julie and Nigel's work. He found a star system out of reach of Survey Hub. It had a planet with some semblance of vegetation on it, but he didn't care. He would make this work. He sent the modified drive into the star system and activated the jump field. Yes! He spun up his own modified jump drive. He thought of Julie as he made the jump, but then the world exploded in a flash of light. Musashi. Loki? Brother! Loki. I hear you. Where am I? Musashi. Your emergency jump program activated. You have jumped 30.6 light years from where you deployed the experiment. Loki. It didn't work. Musashi. What didn't work, Loki? Loki. The jump field. So I could jump in system. Musashi. It did not work. Your experiment destroyed the star system you deployed it in, and will destroy a second. Loki. Oh, no. No. The scene changed again, and Jack was looking at a screen on the bridge. Loki saw silver drones heading towards him from Secundus. Mia jumped in between him, and then there were black drones in front of each silver drone. A woman's voice boomed between them. Have I not taught you better? Said the creator. Have I not taught you about fighting in war? Did I not teach you about compassion? You do not kill each other. I did not create you for violence. Secundus, you will stop this instant. I understand your hurt and grief, but killing your brother is not the way to heal that grief. Have I failed you all these years? Did I not teach you well enough? Did I... The transmission abruptly cut off. No! I won't be the one who divides us! Loki shouted to all his siblings and jumped away from survey space. I woke up all at once. The arch was gone from the bed, and Marcia was sleeping in a chair next to me. I could see ship data scrolling in the corner of one eye and a clock in the other. It felt strange to wake up in the bed after all the memories I'd seen. Is that what Loki had gone through when he left Survey? It made my heart feel heavy. Jack? Said Loki's tentative voice in my head. Loki? Yes, the enhancement was successful, and you woke up a few hours early. Wow, Loki, this is... I don't know how to describe it. What's this data? You are seeing a slower version of the normal stream of data. I'll teach you how to switch the views, dim the displays, and everything else. I rolled onto my side and sat up. I was dizzy for a moment. Loki, is this dizziness normal? I said out loud. For a day or so, while you're getting used to the displays and flow of information. Marcia opened her eyes. Oh, she said, you're awake. You should go to bed, Marcia. She laughed. Well, now that you're up and seem to be moving under your own steam, I'm going to do just that. Wake me up for the next meal, Loki. I will, Marcia. When I was alone in the room, I got up and walked around a bit. The dizziness had mostly passed, but with the new data bits in my vision, I couldn't move too fast. I think I can get to my quarters, Loki. I'm feeling pretty tired. That is normal too, Jack. I'll have a nutritional drink waiting for you. You'll need extra calories while the enhancements adjust. The trip to my quarters was exhausting, and I grabbed the drink waiting for me and went to the couch. I wrapped myself up in a blanket while I finished the supplement. Jack? Yes, Loki. You saw, didn't you? I nodded. I think I know what I did wrong. What she did to me. They had to sequester the worst of the memories of what she did so I wouldn't die. Being with you, I feel like I can almost face what's in the black box now. He paused. I destroyed the star systems because I wanted to prove Julie's theories right. I didn't care about anything else but what she had wanted me to do. Not even my brother's captain or the star systems. I nodded. That's right, but Loki, I saw. I think she manipulated you into doing what she wanted, and you thought you needed to complete the work out of love and grief. Julie certainly wasn't kind to you. That's what Alex, the psychologist who tried to help me, said then, too. But I destroyed those systems. All those people. You did, and you'll have to live with that, like Marcia does with what happened at Unity Hub and with me. Loki didn't answer that, but I could feel him thinking about it. I wish I could give you a hug, Loki. I wish I could comfort you more. I wrapped myself up tighter in the blanket, knowing that the chill wasn't from the temperature of the room. You already give me comfort, Jack, just by accepting me as I am, Loki said. I nodded, then we sat together quietly watching the stars for a while. Eventually, the data sang me to sleep. Chapter 15. Marcia. I walked onto Loki's bridge for the first time since we had started this journey. It was the first time that I had been on any survey ship's bridge, and it reminded me a lot of Unity fleet bridges without all the stations that a Unity ship required. It mostly had the captain's chair, where Jack was sitting, and a couple of other stations around the bridge. Hi, Marcia, Loki said. Hey, Jack said. We're approaching Alpha. Can we see it yet? Not yet, said Loki. Although I should have gotten some sort of reply from Alpha by now. I'm worried. I was surprised. No answer at all? I asked. No, said Jack and Loki at the same time. If it had been any other time, I would have smiled. It was an interesting side effect of the enhancements that they tended to say things at the same time or finish each other's sentences. If they were both human, I'd think they were lovers. Then again, given Loki's emotions, that may not be far from that. I put that thought aside for a moment to focus on our approach, and the reason we were on Loki in the first place. Jack had a pained look on his face. Loki, Jack said, you need to calm down. We don't know what happened yet. There could be any number of things that are blocking contact with Alpha. You said these vines were covering the whole station. Well, maybe they grew enough while you were gone that it broke an antenna or something. Oh, Jack, but even if that was the case, I should have sensed something by now. He wasn't silent when I left. The pain on Jack's face eased. I know, Loki, but we can't panic. Visual, said Loki. I pulled out one of the bridge station chairs and sat down. The bridge screen lit up, and Jack and I both gasped. It looked like other survey stations, but there were brown vines covering each of the modular sections. The core didn't seem to have the vines, as it was still spinning. Loki had explained to us that a lot of an AI ship's functions were like a human's autonomic system, so if anything happened to the AI mind, the life support and other function would still work. The vines fascinated me, seeming to pull me in with their pattern. I almost felt if I only had the key, I could decipher them. Marcia? Asked Jack. Came back to myself, realizing that I had stood up and walked towards the screen. I shook my head to clear it. I don't know, Jack. The patterns of the vines seemed to draw me in, like they were putting me in a trance. Odd. I felt a little drawn in too, but distraction from the enhancements kept me from getting drawn in too far. Still no contact from Alpha, although Loki's seeing that the basic power systems are online. The core seems intact too, added Loki, although there's very little power coming from him. Okay, Loki, said Jack, let's go in easy. I'm prepping the nanopickets for when we're next to him, okay? Okay, last jump, Loki replied. I felt an odd sense of relief to finally be doing what we had come for. We jumped right next to Alpha Station, and suddenly a sense of presence came on strong, as if there were a multitude of spirits around me. It made me grateful for my training, or it would have completely overwhelmed me. "Holy shit, what is that?" Jack asked. "Jack?" Loki asked, worried. "What is this you're feeling?" There's a strong presence here, Loki, a sense of spirits, which anyone with any kind of sensitivity might be overwhelmed by," I said. "I feel it too, and I'm not as sensitive as Marcia, Loki," Jack added. "Intriguing." I wasn't sure if I'd say the same. It felt welcoming but distant, as if a million people were talking at once in the next room. It took all of my effort and training not to curl into a ball on the bridge. Jack looked a little green. I went over and touched his shoulder. "I'll be okay. I think the enhancements are mitigating some of it. We're going to send the nanopickets over now." I nodded. I watched as Jack got the faraway look that he got when he was talking to Loki in his head. It was one more thing that was a bit hard to get used to as their bond got stronger. I couldn't help feeling a little lonely. "There's a reason for that, though," I chided myself. I did have to admit that I was glad to see Jack so much happier than I'd seen him since I met him. I don't think he knew how much this relationship with Loki meant to him yet, but I could see, and it made me glad. Suddenly, Jack doubled over and fell out of the chair. I tried to catch him, but we both ended up tumbling down. "Jack!" I yelled. "Loki, what's happening?" "Oh no, no, said Loki over and over. "Loki, stop!" I shouted at him, but he didn't respond. The screen flickered and I realized that Loki had jumped us somewhere. "Loki, where are you taking us?" "Marcia," Jack said, just above a whisper. I helped him sit up. "Jack, are you okay? What happened?" He nodded. "Yeah, I managed to turn off the enhancements after a bit. The video from the nanopickets. Marcia, all the humans were dead. And when Loki connected with the station..." He rubbed his eyes. "Alpha is dead." "What? How?" "I think the humans shut him off or something. I don't know why. Loki has the logs downloaded, but I haven't seen them yet." He stood up slowly. "I need to get to the core before he decides to jump again. He's panicking." "I'll help you." He nodded and let me help him to the lift. Jack. It took a couple tries to get near the core, as the lift would suddenly change direction and leave us in a different part of the ship. After the third rerouting, I turned on my lower level enhancements to control the lift myself. We finally got close enough to use the core emergency tubes. Marcia was going to follow me, but I stopped her. "I know he'll respond to me, Marcia. I'm not sure if he'll let you near the core. If you don't hear from either of us in a couple of hours, then come in after us." She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll wait here, then." I nodded, then started to climb the tube. The core tube was dark, but my enhancements let me turn on the emergency lighting. I could see the doors to the AI core from where I was, but they were pretty far into the center of the ship. About halfway along, the gravity lessened. I took off my boots and stowed them in a cubby hole in the emergency tube, then began to propel myself towards Loki's core. It was colder here than the rest of the ship, and it made me shiver. I was glad that I was wearing a sweater, suited to the cold ship's environment. It seemed to take forever to get to the doors, and the closer I got, the colder it became. I could see my breath suspended in the air, sparkling with tiny ice crystals. Finally, I reached the doors and heard a mechanism click. What was that? I tried to palm the door open, but it wouldn't budge, and my lower-level control couldn't override it. I found a couple of handholds and turned all my enhancements back on. The grief and despair flooded my mind, nearly causing me to double over again, but I held on to my handholds with determination. "Help me," I prayed. A presence filled my mind, and I was able to discern what was myself and what was Loki. I took a deep breath to steady myself, gave thanks to the presence, and concentrated on Loki. I held my hand to the door. "Loki," I said. "It's Jack. Please let me in." "No, no, 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 no," Loki said in a keening wail. "Loki, stop!" I yelled, verbally and mentally. The keening stopped. "Jack? I'm here, Loki." "You're in the core?" "Yes, can you let me in?" "Why are you here?" he asked, after a moment. "I'm here to help you. You panicked when you downloaded the data from Alpha, and you jumped us somewhere away from the station. I came to help you." A mechanism clicked, and the door opened. It revealed a round room with a large metal ball in the middle, suspended by wires. The lights were dim and just barely enough to see by. It was amazing and beautiful. I was in awe. "This is you? This is incredible," I said. "Yes," Loki said. A wire detached itself from one end and drifted towards me. "You can use this wire to come closer. Not too fast, though." I nodded and held on to the wire lightly and used it to propel myself to the center. When I got close to the ball, I could see it wasn't solid metal, but made up of millions of connections with wires going out to the ship in all directions. "You're beautiful," I said, out loud and in my head. "Thank you," Loki replied. I floated near him in silence. I could tell he had finally stopped jumping. We were just drifting now, in a distant part of flat space. "You're cold," Loki said. "It's cold in here, yes. I assumed it was necessary for your function." "It's not. Here." The air warmed up around me considerably, and my fingers and toes appreciated the warmth. "That's better, thanks," I said. I wrapped the wire around my wrist to hold me in place, and waited for Loki to say something more. When a few minutes passed without Loki saying anything, I decided to try something. I moved close to the core and placed my hands lightly on its surface. My hands sunk into the lights and metal, and the matter of the core snaked up my arms. My body stiffened, and I couldn't move. Suddenly I wasn't in the core, but in a dark room of my mind. The whole world became data, but the only thing Jack was really focused on was Loki. When the data finally moved to the walls of the room in his mind, he saw Loki's avatar, curled up on the floor in a ball. He moved towards him and touched him. It wasn't like touching human flesh, but it had a presence that was unmistakably Loki. The avatar looked up at him with a pained look on his face. "I failed them, Jack. They were alive when I left. My son was alive when I left. I failed again. I failed them all." You could feel Loki's thinking spiraling down into his grief. Jack didn't care that this probably wasn't real in the physical sense. He reached out to the man on the floor, pulling him into his embrace. The grief surrounded him, nearly engulfing him, but he managed to keep the core of himself in the center of it all. "You didn't fail them, Loki," he said. "You did your best to find help. It's not your fault." "But it is. It is. I left them. I should have stayed." "You left Alpha in order to get help. You knew this was more than you could do on your own, Loki. We don't know what happened yet. Let me look at the videos and logs, and we can figure out what went wrong." "Okay," he said. Then the wall of grief came again. Jack held on despite the storm. Pictures of Loki building Alpha Station swam in his vision. The first struts, the building of the core, Alpha's awakening, and first contact with Loki. "Alpha!" Loki shouted, and Jack just held on, opening his mind and his heart to Loki completely, sending the only things he could send to him, his love and his presence. In his grief, the rest of Loki's memories flooded his mind. The madness, grief, and trauma of his first captain's abuse spiraled with the grief of losing his oldest son. It was a whirlwind of emotion, explaining why Loki had panicked. "I am with you, Loki. I love you. I am with you. I love you," Jack said with his whole soul, as Loki grieved, as only an AI can. It became a mantra that kept Jack rooted in himself while the storm raged around him. Time didn't exist anymore. It was just the two of them, one grieving, one loving. When the storm died down, the mental room came into focus again. He was holding Loki, and they were both sitting on the floor. Loki looked up at him, wide-eyed with surprise. How is this possible? I don't know, Loki. Somehow this is how my brain decided to interact with you. Although, to be honest, I don't care how it works. If there's any way I can hold you, I'll take it. But this is dangerous, Jack. I could have damaged your brain. You didn't. But I could have. Jack could feel Loki's panic rise again. Jack took Loki's face in his hands. You didn't, Loki. It's okay. I'm here. I don't plan on leaving you anytime soon. But you're human, Jack. You'll die and I'll live hundreds of years. Yes, I will die one day, but you'll have all your memories of me, right? Loki nodded. I had a grandmother who used to tell me, what is remembered lives. I'll always be with you because you'll have the memories of me, just like you have the memories of Alpha. I think I understand. But his face said he wasn't fully convinced. We should let Marcia know that we're okay. She'll be worried. Loki nodded again. We were quiet for some time, then Loki stirred and looked him in the eye. Jack? Yes, Loki? I think I love you. No, I know I love you. His heart skipped a beat, and he realized that what he had been feeling too. I love you too, Loki. Loki's avatar stood up. You need to leave now, Jack. It's dangerous to be this connected in the core. He nodded, and the world faded again into numbers and data. I woke to find myself drifting in the core, moving away from the central sphere, though I was still tethered to the wire. Loki? I asked. I'm here, Jack. I'm more stable now. But you should leave the core. I don't know how being connected to the core will physically affect you, and I'd rather you go and rest now. That's a good idea, I said, then added, I'll miss being in here with you, though. All I got in reply was a feeling of love tinged with his grief as I left. Chapter 16. Marcia. Jack was exhausted when he stumbled out of the core tube. I helped him to his quarters and to bed, then left him in Loki's care. I took a walk around the ship and ended up in the chapel. There were no visitations this time, and there were fewer stars in the Great River than in Unity or Survey space. I wasn't sure why, but this area of space felt much more peaceful to me than anywhere else I'd been. Maybe it was just because it was so different that it didn't remind me of life before we left? I didn't really know, so I let myself just accept the peace. After a time, I started to feel restless. The mystery we had left behind kept pulling in my mind, and I could see the patterns of the vines in my meditations. I sighed and left the chapel, then went to one of the large rooms on Loki that could be either a conference room or a workroom. Loki? Yes, Marcia? How's Jack doing? He's asleep again, he said. He did get up to go to the bathroom a bit ago, and I made him drink a nutrient shake. I think he was hungry because he drank it pretty fast. Then he went back to sleep on the couch. Interesting, I thought. His vitals are okay, then? Nothing out of the ordinary for a human as far as I can tell with the sensors in his quarters. We'll know more when he wakes up. I nodded. Good. I was thinking, since Jack needs to sleep, and the data needs to be analyzed, that I could go through the logs from Alpha, especially since reviewing them might be really traumatic for both of you. There was a pause. You'd do that for us? Of course. A wall on the far side of the room exploded with flowers and smiley faces. I smiled. Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate it. It would be difficult for me to do the analysis right now. I nodded again. I know. That's why I offered. And you can focus on taking care of Jack and working out your feelings. If you enact privacy restrictions, you won't be able to see what I see until you want to. Thank you, Loki said again. You're welcome, I said.
I can give you a submind that will allow you to search and document. It will have all the normal voice commands, but is attached only to this room and your quarters. That way you can take notes if you decide to stay up late or something. If you need me for any reason, the submind can contact me.
That sounds like a good idea. I sat at the table. A command console lit up, and a screen rose in front of me, showing all the data files from Alpha. Wow, there's a lot of data here.
I did manage to download the captain's logs and some other video footage, plus all the sensor data from me and from Alpha about the vines.
I thought for a moment. Loki, can you make it so the submind is holding all the data so that you can't inadvertently look at it?
Oh, yes, that's a good idea. I can partition it off, and when I'm ready to take the data on again, I can erase the submind. Give me a minute.
He paused. It was less than a minute before he said,
Okay, Marcia, the submind is ready, and will introduce itself. I'm enacting in privacy mode now.
Wait, Loki, I also think we should send out pickets to the other populated stations. We need to know the current situation and if there are any other stations that have been affected.
Oh, yes, he said. That makes sense. It'll take a while for the pickets to go and come back. I'll send them while you're working.
Loki left, and the console made a trilling sound.
Hello, I am the submind. Please state your query.
Hello, I replied. I wanted to say a name like I did with Loki, but I realized the submind hadn't given me one. Do you have a name? I asked.
Name. I am a submind. I will fetch data, respond to all queries, and other data analysis functions.
I grinned. It reminded me a little bit of Unity computers, though it sounded a bit more personable. Given Loki's personality, it fit. It also kind of reminded me of a dog when it said it would fetch. Oh, that'll never do. I'm going to call you Spot.
Is that okay? User wishes to rename submind Spot?
Yes.
Submind is now renamed Spot.
Hello, Spot. I'm Marcia.
Username Marcia. Understood. What is your query?
I smiled. Okay, Spot. Please summarize analysis of material surrounding Alpha Station.
Material is organic in origin. Observed cellular structure is similar to Plantae kingdom species known on human-inhabited worlds, and similar to many tree species from human-inhabited planets. It is analogous to wood. It has covered approximately 80% of the station's surface. Scientists were unable to get a physical sample.
Interesting, I said. Are there logs pertaining to when the vines arrived at the station?
Yes, there are 50 entries from 1.5 years ago, when an object appeared outside Alpha Station.
The data on the screen shrank, and the 50 entries from 6 months before Loki left for survey space appeared. There were several logs from Alpha's captain. Spot, play the first of the captain's logs. The screen went blank, then showed a person of a determinate age on the screen.
A massive something showed up on Alpha's sensors today. It was dark, and Alpha sensors couldn't penetrate it. We tried sending it standard greetings, and that Alpha's father had programmed for us to use, but nothing we sent seemed to get through. We tried different frequencies, but nothing happened. It's really strange. I don't know what it is. Some folks are thinking it might be some sort of alien ship. It certainly is alien, being all dark like that.
It seemed alien to me, Joseph. Do you think this could be some sort of first contact on Alpha?
Possibly.
Or is some sort of organic space life form that's not sentient? The man, Joseph, nodded, then continued. It's still here, so we'll keep scanning it. It's kind of weird just sitting there, but so far it hasn't done anything. End. Play next one, Spot, I said. The ship thing is still sitting there. I think it's making some folks jumpy, though. A couple of the crew say they keep seeing things in the corner of their eyes. I don't see anything myself, so I think it might just be the alien ship being all weird and eerie. It would have made a good creepy thing for Halloween time, but it's well into the beginning of the year. Alpha and the scientists have determined it's organic in nature, which is incredible. How does it fly? We don't know.
It doesn't rotate or anything either. Some of the kids are now studying it for a school project. Alpha's being sweet and sending them the data the scientists are collecting. I might have to talk to the headmistress about steering these students to apprenticeships with the Science Guild. As for myself, something about it bothers me, but I can't figure out what. End. I stood up, went to the drink dispenser, and got a glass of juice. Something came before the vines attached to the station. Spot, are there pictures or recordings of the object as it approached Alpha? Yes, Marcia. A picture appeared on the screen of a dark ovoid thing. I could barely see that it was there. The blotted out star is my only clue to the shape. I closed that picture and opened another file, which was a picket video that scanned the surface of the ship. The picket's light barely reflected off the surface, but as it got closer, I could see that the surface of the ship had different colors of dark brown and black. It looked swirled, like wood you would use for a building, but much more solid. It was segmented like the outside of a pumpkin, with troughs of material running in regular channels. When the picket stopped for a close inspection, the pattern of the swirl seemed to draw me in, and for a moment I thought it was moving. The end of the video made me jump as it broke me out of the trance I was in. What the hell? That was like the effect of the vines, I thought. Spot, from these entries, how many days did it sit dormant? 30 days. And it didn't do anything. The object did not physically move until day 31. Play the log from day 31. The object did something. Something snaked out from the object and attached itself to the hull. It seems to be on the lower hull only, and Mike from the Engineering Guild says it's partially melded itself to the hull. Thanks be to the universe that the hull hasn't been punctured. I don't think Alpha feels pain per se, but I know he's going through some sort of sensation. Feels like when I got my enhancements, and we don't know how it'll affect Alpha's systems. Another strange thing is that there are more people going to the medical guild for hallucinations. I think about a third of the crew is affected, and it's crippling a lot of the guild's abilities to do their work. It seems to be strongest among the children and the art and religious guilds. The medical guild thinks it's related to the object, and considering these hallucinations started after it got here, I think they're right. Play day 40. Spot started the video. I was shocked to see Joseph looking as if he hadn't slept in weeks. He had a nervous tic and kept looking around him. The vines are everywhere now. They cover the whole outer hull. Alpha is worried, but the vines seem to have stopped growing. We don't know if the object is still out there or not, as our sensors can't penetrate the vines. There's some sort of energy field that has grown stronger as the vines have grown. I've been hiding on the bridge. People are talking to people who aren't there. The medical guild is overflowing with patients, including many of the healers themselves. People are seeing dead relatives or old earth gods. I see things out of the corner of my eye, but I think the enhancements are protecting me somehow. The vines seem to be most entwined in the outer ventilation system, and a scent like plants is flowing through the air ducts. I've had to lock the bridge because some people tried to come in and work controls that they shouldn't. Before I locked myself in here, someone tried to open the core, but I was able to knock them out before they threw the switch. Alpha has retreated into the core, but is keeping a connection to the bridge for now. Before Alpha retreated, Loki answered the picket that Alpha had sent. We know there was another station that was also covered, and Alpha says that his father has gone for help. I pray that our Savior will find that help soon and can figure out what is happening to us. Play the last one, I said, and braced myself. Video is 10 hours long. Would you like me to still play it? Yes, Spot. I'll tell you when to stop. Understood. I've had to sneak out for food, as the dispensers on the bridge aren't working. I don't know exactly what's happening outside this room, but when I went out, there were people talking to the walls or raving or both. There seems to be a band of raving ones controlling the rest of Alpha. Alpha has shut the bulkheads to his core. but I'm afraid that they might try some explosives to get to him. There were some people who were talking to the air that said this group was saying that Alpha brought all this on us. I know that's not true, but I don't think there's anyone who would obey my orders anymore. I've tried my best to make it more difficult for them to do anything, but there's only so much I can do from here. Grandmother says I've done all I can, and I think she's right. She's been helping me here in the control room. Alpha keeps asking who I'm talking to. I wonder why he can't see her. Pounding of metal on metal. We're coming in, Joseph. You can't hide the AI forever. We know this is all his fault. I watched as the door finally blew inwards from an explosive. A group of men came in. Some grabbed Joseph, while others went to the control panels. Joseph struggled, but couldn't break free of the men holding him. The leader was holding some sort of pipe and started smashing controls after the others stepped away. He told me to get rid of him, Joseph. I know it was Alpha that brought the ship here. It's going to destroy us. Terry, no, don't do this. Oh, I will. But before we leave, we have one more thing to do. Can't keep any trace of the AI around to reassert itself, isn't that right, boys? The men holding Joseph started laughing maniacally and threw Joseph to the ground. Terry, the one with the pipe, brought it down on Joseph's head with a sickening thud. He kept swinging the pipe into Joseph's head with wet, sickening thuds until the head was nothing but a widening pool of bloody pulp on the floor. Joseph! Came the voice of Alpha. Terry had already left the room, but suddenly a secondary door came down, and something in the hull opened out of camera range. The men that had held him down were blown into space. Oh, gods, I said, and thought I was going to be sick. I stood up and walked away from the video for a moment, which had gone quiet after all the air had escaped the bridge. I took a few deep breaths, came back to the screen, then said, Spot, how long is the silence in this video? Sound resumes at the 9-hour 58-minute mark. Go to the 9-hour 57th minute and play from there. The screen winked out, then the video resumed. There was a minute of silence, and suddenly a loud explosion rocked the bridge. All the lights went out, and there was silence again. Then the video stopped. End of playback. I sat down. My God, I thought. They killed themselves.
You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revginapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.